World War I was a time of immense political and military turmoil, a period when global powers were engaged in a conflict that would reshape international politics and societies for decades to come. One of the most significant political figures of the era was Theobald von Bethmann Hollweg, the Chancellor of Germany from 1909 to 1917. Unlike the generals who commanded armies on the battlefield, Bethmann Hollweg played a pivotal role behind the scenes, influencing the direction of German policy both before and during the war. His actions, decisions, and struggles within the complexities of German politics offer a fascinating look into the challenges of leadership during one of the most devastating wars in human history. In this video, we will explore the life and career of Theobald von Bethmann Hollweg, focusing on his role in World War I and the legacy he left behind. Theobald von Bethmann Hollweg was born on November 29, 1856, in Hohenwald, Prussia, into a distinguished and aristocratic family. His upbringing was marked by the values of public service and duty, common among Prussian elites at the time. He pursued higher education at the universities of Strasbourg, Leipzig, and Berlin, where he studied law and history, two subjects that would greatly influence his approach to governance. Bethmann Hollweg entered the Prussian civil service in 1882 and quickly ascended through the ranks, holding various administrative positions. By the early 1900s, he had earned a reputation as an efficient and capable bureaucrat, known for his moderate and reformist political views. In 1905, he was appointed Prussian Minister of the Interior, where he focused on internal reforms aimed at modernizing the Prussian administration. In 1909, at the age of 52, Bethmann Hollweg was appointed Chancellor of the German Empire by Kaiser Wilhelm II, following the resignation of Bernhard von Bülow. As Chancellor, Bethmann Hollweg was thrust into a highly complex political environment, characterized by tensions between the military, the monarchy, and the Reichstag, the German parliament. His appointment marked the beginning of a tenure that would see him grapple with the monumental challenges of governance during a time of rising nationalism and growing international tensions. Before the outbreak of World War I, Bethmann Hollweg's chancellorship was dominated by efforts to maintain Germany's position as a leading European power, while navigating the increasingly volatile political landscape of Europe. He was often seen as a moderate figure seeking to balance the aggressive expansionist tendencies of the German military with a more cautious and pragmatic approach to foreign policy. Bethmann Hollweg supported a policy of Weltpolitik, world policy, which aimed to expand Germany's influence on the global stage, particularly through naval expansion and colonial acquisition. However, he was also wary of the growing tensions between the European powers and sought to avoid a major war. He advocated for diplomatic solutions to resolve conflicts and prevent the escalation of military confrontations, particularly in the Balkans, where the tensions between Austria-Hungary and Serbia were threatening to ignite a broader conflict. Despite his efforts at diplomacy, Bethmann Hollweg faced considerable pressure from the military establishment and conservative elements within German society, who favored a more aggressive approach. His attempts to moderate Germany's foreign policy were further complicated by the intricate system of alliances that bound the European powers together. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in 1914 triggered a chain reaction of events that would ultimately lead to the outbreak of World War I. Despite Bethmann Hollweg's reluctance to plunge Germany into a full-scale conflict, one of the most controversial decisions of Bethmann Hollweg's career was his role in issuing the so-called blank check to Austria-Hungary in July 1914. Following the assassination of Franz Ferdinand, Austria-Hungary sought assurance from its ally, Germany, that it would receive unconditional support in its confrontation with Serbia. Bethmann Hollweg, under pressure from the military and the Kaiser, offered Austria-Hungary a guarantee of full support, effectively giving them carte blanche to pursue their aggressive course of action against Serbia. This decision has been widely debated by historians, with some arguing that it was a crucial step in the escalation of the conflict into a full-scale European war. By offering unconditional support to Austria-Hungary, Bethmann Hollweg and the German leadership set in motion a series of events that led to the involvement of Russia, France, and eventually Britain, transforming what could have been a localized conflict into a global war. Bethmann Hollweg later expressed regret over the blank check decision, realizing too late the extent to which it had limited Germany's diplomatic options. However, once the war began, he was fully committed to Germany's war effort, even though he continued to seek ways to negotiate a peace settlement. As World War I progressed, Bethmann Hollweg found himself increasingly at odds with Germany's military leadership, particularly with figures like General Erich Ludendorff and General Paul von Hindenburg, who advocated for an all-out military victory. Bethmann Hollweg, on the other hand, recognized the devastating toll the war was taking on Germany and sought to find a way to negotiate a peace settlement that would end the conflict without complete destruction. One of Bethmann Hollweg's most notable wartime actions was the issuance of the so-called September Program in 1914, which outlined Germany's war aims, including territorial expansion and economic dominance over Europe. However, as the war dragged on and the prospect of a quick victory faded, Bethmann Hollweg became increasingly open to the idea of a negotiated peace. In 1916, he proposed what became known as the Peace Without Victory Initiative, in which Germany would seek a negotiated settlement with its enemies without demanding total victory or harsh reparations. However, this initiative was met with resistance from both the German military and the Allied powers, who were not yet willing to entertain peace negotiations. As a result, Bethmann Hollweg's efforts at peace went unfulfilled, and the war continued to escalate. Another major turning point in Bethmann Hollweg's chancellorship was the decision to resume unrestricted submarine warfare in 1917. This tactic, which involved German U-boats attacking and sinking enemy and neutral ships without warning, had been suspended earlier in the war due to concerns about provoking the United States. However, by 1917, the German military leadership, desperate to break the Allied blockade and starve Britain into submission, pushed for the resumption of unrestricted submarine warfare. Bethmann Hollweg was initially opposed to this strategy, recognizing that it would likely draw the United States into the war on the side of the Allies. However, under intense pressure from the military, and with the situation on the front lines growing increasingly dire, he reluctantly agreed to the policy. As predicted, the resumption of unrestricted submarine warfare led to the United States declaring war on Germany in April 1917, further sealing Germany's fate in the conflict. By mid-1917, Theobald von Bethmann Hollweg's position as chancellor had become increasingly untenable. He was caught between the military leadership, who sought total victory at all costs, and political factions within the Reichstag, who were pushing for greater civilian control over the war effort. In July 1917, Bethmann Hollweg was forced to resign under pressure from both the military and political opponents, marking the end of his tumultuous tenure as chancellor. Bethmann Hollweg's legacy is one of complexity and contradiction. On one hand, he was a pragmatic and moderate leader who sought to avoid war and later tried to negotiate a peace settlement. On the other hand, his decisions, particularly the blank check to Austria-Hungary and the resumption of unrestricted submarine warfare, contributed to the escalation and prolongation of the conflict. After his resignation, Bethmann Hollweg retired from public life and lived in relative obscurity until his death on January 1, 1921. Historians have debated his role in the war, with some viewing him as a tragic figure who was overwhelmed by the forces of militarism and nationalism, while others see him as a key player in Germany's aggressive policies during the war. Thank you for watching our video on Theobald von Bethmann Hollweg, a complex figure whose decisions shaped Germany's role in World War I. If you enjoyed learning about his life and career, Please give us a like and consider subscribing to Heroes Historia for more in-depth looks at historical figures who influenced pivotal moments in world history. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Stay tuned for more episodes.